awakening, after awakening, and thy will be done. The first major step in Zen is Kensho, awakening. And awakening is like getting into the zone, but it's more radical in the sense of breakthrough. In any case, small or large, certain awakening may take place. Sometimes we don't know that's what's happening. We can come up with an inspiration, idea, and a peaceful sense. You go into the zone, into the flow, or have this sense of waku waku, I call it, aliveness. And when you go through the spiritual path, then you start to realize means is the end. The journey we take place is not to look for the accomplishment of the journey, but the journey itself is the accomplishment. So means is the end. It's kind of like a journey is my home. My journey is my home. That's Basho, the Zen monk and haiku producer mentioned. The state is also like melting into the nature. The ego is gone, so you melt into the nature or laws of universe. As much as we may start to learn to be awakened and have the sense, especially the liveliness in our body sensation, we are on our way of the spiritual path. The means and the end. Means is the end again. In that space, we start to realize, I mentioned the 4 types of wisdom. Sometimes they call 5 types of wisdom. The wisdom of finding the amazement, wondrous nature of the universe appearing in front of us. That's one. And we are melting with them, so there's an equality, oneness that we feel. There's also what I call the mirror mind. The mind is clear, and reflect on mind is the events happening, but the mirror itself doesn't change. So there's a clear picture of what's going on in life. And the last thing of the 4 is to manifest whatever we wish is to be manifested. So you are in line to the law of the universe, no ego, but pure sense of awareness would bring us the wisdom. And the wisdom is like at the state of mirror mind, you are looking at the picture in the mirror. It's like a screen of the mind. So the mind moves, but you're not affected as a mirror. Just observe it and let it pass in the state of being in the now. So that's the point of thy will be done. Things happen as it should, and the mind doesn't get into the way. More often empty-minded or no-mind state. But as I practice this, and I have been doing for 20 years or so, and I realize that thy will be done is the answer to all the questions. So it's just the following the law of the universe, and if we can align the mind with it, then things gonna go fine. That's conceptually correct, and that's what I found maybe 12 years ago. But revisiting in the last few years, I start to face this difficulty. If the monk is living in the quiet space out of the world or the society, you may have better chance of controlling in the environment you live. But if you go back to the society, as I did, you get tumbled up and down all over because of your relationship out of your control. So your universe is more tumbling as opposed to the quiet and calm mind you have in a secluded setting. Most people living in the society, interfacing with all the unknown things happening internet, relationship, everything changes and you change. So how to navigate your life, pursuing your journey? It's not necessarily easy. So I revisited, for example, the four wisdom or five wisdom. The fifth one is called the wisdom of suchness, accepting the suchness, which is the law of universe. And the mirror mind has the mirror reflecting that insight, the suchness as a core. But when you face the difficulty in life, my mind gets disturbed and you want to have the peace and the stable core, but you are jolted. So I start to question what's going on. And revisiting the mirror mind, I noticed that my mirror is often not that steady and clear, so that I was in the more of a turbulence, not just having the light shining the wisdom to the turbulence. So after many experience of months going on, I realized, and this has to be proven much more so in future, but I believe the sense of my notion that I got thy will be done has to be really a test at the moment. So what it means is that if the mirror is, tumbling and shaking and you cannot see the picture, but you are part of the picture of the confusion, what you need to get at is not easy. In theory, thy will be done. But that's conceptual understanding and how we go beyond the theory into practice. Then I finally came up, I believe this may be the way to do, that's why I'm talking about it, is to practice thy will be done. Totally forget all happening in the mind. When we notice that we are confused and in delusion, and still mind is trying to seek for the solution because there's an issue that you face in the society and what happened, what happens not, and if so, then what, and all that configuration of the future path because it's imminent to happen. But if you get to the point of not going anywhere, that's the question. We have to notice this rather early than tumble in that disturbance. And when I noticed that, one of the trick or technique, if I may say so, is go back to the basic of the notion of thy will be done. Obviously, the laws of universe is the prevailing force that we have to follow. But mind gets into the way, and that's the interface of the mind dimension and the source dimension of how the universe is functioning. And there's a conflict. In the society living, the mind takes so much weight than living in a secluded setting. So what do? Of course, you want to find the edge so that you stay out of that confused state to have a place in life that you won't be disturbed, as in the monk's case. But to get there, you may still have to go through some of the turmoil. It's happening here and there. Then, at the end, I know the solution, which is the mirror mind. But to get to the mirror mind, just observe but not being affected. One trick I realized that I didn't use as much or at all is that just say Namu Amida Butsu or prayer. Christianity have the prayer too, the same thing. And what it means is that it's total surrender to the will of Jesus or God or Amida Butsu. Amida is the Buddha who attained the Buddhahood and helping people. So you pray Namu Amida Butsu as much as you may pray in Christianity, something like thy kingdom will come, or thy will be done on earth as in heaven. So the notion is very much the same. At the core of despair, difficulties, the mind cannot function well. you have to let go, surrender. Whether you call it thy will or laws of universe, at the end and from the beginning, this has been the case that there's laws of universe prevailing everywhere. So you have to go back to the source. Otherwise, you're still using your mind, and there's possibly ego trying to discover the path. Maybe even without ego, you're still trying. And trying means you're not accepting. And of course, you can try hard and suffer and all of that, and can break through every now and then. But we need to make a judgment at a certain point. In my awakening experience, the case is somewhat corresponding or purely corresponding to the notion that I was in pain. This is more of a physical pain of sitting for a long time, but the physical pain is turning into the mental pain because you start to go through thinking like I have to go to the hospital or I need an ambulance. So the mind is tumbled, shifting all around because you want to get out. But I don't realize that at the time. That was my mind, my ego. The identity is me in the mind. It's playing the game. So when I finally gave up, the thought came something like, is it because I'm trying to escape the pain, therefore I have pain? That's when my breakthrough awakening took place. I think Eckhart Tolle went through similar, and maybe his case is much deeper to the core, but the symptom is similar, that he wondered, he's suffering, why am I suffering? And he thought, there's me thinking why I'm suffering. So there's another me versus the me suffering. So that's the disconnect of finding you out of your identity of who you are to the bigger me, which is the same as going to the source of who we are. We are a small piece in the universe, and there's a force of universe prevailing, and we start to see ourselves from that source. That's the second dimension, not that's just the mind dimension, which is the limitation. But if you can find that source and connect to that, then there's nothing more, because it's an absolute law and the force of what it is. So the point of the mirror mind, the mirror is the source, but can be clouded or jolting, and you are not quite clear what you're seeing, because the alignment between you yourself in the mind and the source, the core of who we are, where the thy will be done is prevailing, there's a misalignment or disconnect. Therefore, the mirror is jolting, not clear. Then you have to go one step further, trying to see the picture. That's you trying to see the picture, but you let go of that seeing, not from your point of view, but from the universe point of view, so to speak. It's conceptually speaking, and you have to experience this, what it means. And to have that gap or bridge, or jump the gap, is similar to those awakening experiences I mentioned for myself and Eckhart Tolle. You have to go to the different dimension. So the word Namu Amida Butsu, or thy will be done, is, I thought, what I was thinking is still a conceptual understanding. And when it comes to the point of that, when I have to practice it, you really have to let go of you as an identity, but you, being the universe, has to take over. That's the leap from the ego, the mind entity, myself, that point of view. That's the unknown source. You don't know who thy will be done and how it's going to happen. But that's the jump we have to face. So, in case of Buddhism, just like in Christianity, Shin Buddhism is a very good example, and I mentioned about the Myokonin who practice it. And their way is during the day, they say Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu on occasion. And that's the repetition is the mother of skill to get into the zone, the skills that is part of who you are, so that it pops up when it's needed. When there's a sign of suffering or questioning, then you jump into Namo Amida Butsu. Or you can use the Christianity, thy will be done, and prayer to go through that. So often at the end, the process may be simple, as in the case of learning how to swim or surf, but you have to get in tune with that process. And I believe, strongly believe, after going through my first awakening, which took place 22 years ago, I'm revisiting this whole thing over, and this is what I found. And I thought I just put my words onto the voice memo for my record. So this is the second version of Thy Will Be Done that I said 12 years ago or so. But at the higher level or deeper level, whatever you call it, and jumping into that process and learn to have the habitual pattern, for the lack of a better word, but it has to become part of me. Otherwise, I may be still having this mirror. Although I know the conceptual understanding of how things happen, and there are so many examples of people saying that. It doesn't fly unless we practice, and that's where I am. I don't know if it makes sense for any listener, if there is, but that's the process I'm going through. Thank you.